wonderful morning so far, wherever you are in the world. You can see in the chat already, I put up a little bit of a poll saying how late I was going to be. Congratulations to anybody that went for 3 or more minutes, because anyone that has been around for a while will know that I am always late to my own stream. So one day I will be on time, and that will be the day we celebrate. But 3 minutes for me is not bad at all. So let me know who's in the chat right now. Let me know, of course, what your plans are going into this Game Week 4 deadline. It feels a lifetime ago since we had Game Week 3. And to be honest with you, I would have loved to have had a 2-week period where I knew exactly what I was doing with my transfers. But being a manager right now with no Mo Salah, few problems in the team, no João Pedro, I still, right now, being 850, have not exactly the clearest idea what I want to do with my team. So we're hopefully going to come to some sort of conclusion on this stream in the next hour. And as always, I'm going to need your guys' help to get to the right conclusion with my team. So as always, if you're looking forward to it, drop a like on the stream, and obviously let me know in the chat if you are tuning in. I see some regular faces already, which of course we will go through. But in terms of today's stream, it's going to be about go through my team, my current plans, exactly what I'm going to do. Hopefully lock them in on this stream. Go through the underlying numbers for certain players in the fixtures. Hopefully try and get up a bit of a wildcard team. And then importantly, the most important thing is, of course, answering your questions. So JP, hope we do well, mate. He's already asked a question saying, would you sell Gordon to Eze? I also have Murphy and Isak. Also, Barnes likely to play left wing. Yeah, so I don't really think it's a desperate transfer this week. But if you have no other problems in your team, a 1 free transfer of Gordon to Eze, I think is a solid move. But I don't think it is long term that essential for your team. I think it's more important to take a look at how your team is going to look for the foreseeable future. Does your team actually need that one additional transfer in the following week to improve it? I don't think that's a move that I would be desperately making, mate, to be honest. Raphael, we're doing well. Danny, Purple Snake. Danny's saying anyone using their wildcard. And I think there's just under 1 million managers using their wildcard this week, which is crazy and a little bit scary for those managers that haven't activated it, because I think right now we're probably in a position where we're looking at these wildcard teams that have everybody we want to have. They've got Mo Salah, they've got Cole Palmer, they've got Haaland, João Pedro. Teams like mine, where they're not looking the best, it's a little bit of a scary prospect going into this week. And again, for anybody that didn't know, in terms of wildcards, they don't impact price changes. So if people are buying certain players on wildcard and you see a certain player has been bought by 1 million managers, if 700,000 of those transfers are wildcard transfers, they don't actually impact price changes. So that's why it's been really difficult over the last few days to predict which players are going to rise and fall in price. So a little bit of an insider tip there for anybody that didn't know about that right now. So keep getting your questions in the chat, guys. We're going to go through them. But I think it's probably a good time right now to put up my team, show you exactly where I'm at right now, give you a little bit of a reasoning why I'm still very hesitant into what direction to take my team. And hopefully we can get a little bit of advice from you guys on what exactly to do. So again, if you look forward to it, make sure you drop a like on the stream. So here is how we are currently looking going into Game Week 4. Again, no transfers have been made. So I've done nothing. But I have 1 free transfer and 1 million in the bank. So I don't have a lot of flexibility on my team right now. And we're going to go through the few different options that we can do. But right now, the first thing we need to cover off is wildcard. Have I been tempted to do a wildcard in Game Week 4? Yes, absolutely. But for me, let me just get rid of that poll, by the way. I'm conscious I've still got it up what time I'm arriving on my own stream. So in terms of my own team, when I look at it on the face of it, does this team need a wildcard? Well, I always have the usual sort of checklist when I'm looking at a wildcard. Do I need to make 5 or more transfers? Well, I look at it right now. For this game week in isolation, I think the answer is no. If you're including someone like an Alexander Isak as a player that you have to transfer out, then I think you're thinking too far ahead. For me, Alexander Isak is always one of those sort of players that can score in any fixture and arguably is the second best forward in the game. So I don't think, even though there are someone like a João Pedro at home against Ipswich, I can't sit here and say to you, I have to wildcard this week to do Isak to João Pedro. That just doesn't really make a lot of sense in my eyes. The big reason why you would wildcard this team is to basically flip the structure and bring in Mo Salah. I'm not one of those managers that is tempted to go without Erling Haaland. I definitely think there is a route to do it. I don't think it's a bad move, but personally, I just think it's a bit of a scary prospect wildcarding without Erling Haaland in it. So even though a wildcard would allow me to easily get to Mo Salah, which is a difficult task right now, that in itself is just not enough for a reason for me to activate the wildcard this week. So that's why I've postponed the wildcard. My new plan is just to be flexible with it, potentially in game week 6. But again, if maybe one of my transfers is not to sell a Bukayo Saka, I already have him in place for game week 6. Could I then be one step ahead of those managers that are wildcarded in game week 6? And maybe get some benefits there. So again, that's the reason why I'm not wildcarding. The main issues with this team right now is going to be double Arsenal away against Spurs. Not ideal at all. Yes, Arsenal could keep a clean sheet. Yes, Bukayo Saka could score. But Mo Salah with his home fixture against Nottingham Forest, followed by Bournemouth, is a very difficult thing to avoid doing when you have an easy move to Saka to Salah. So if you're watching this right now, and you're in a position where you have a free transfer to do Saka to Mo Salah, I absolutely would do it. The big thing that we need to remember is that it will give you a captaincy pick in game week 5. When we take a look at the fixtures for game week 5 in isolation, this is a tough week for captaincy. And a reason why I do think bringing in Mo Salah in itself is worthwhile. West Ham against Chelsea, you could go for a Cole Palmer, but I don't think that is the greatest fixture in itself. Of course, if you have an Ollie Watkins, that's a great fixture. But when I look at it, Isak away against Fulham, okay, but not really captaincy material. Liverpool, of course, are the ones that we need to go for against Bournemouth. But if you don't have somebody like a Mo Salah, then I would be a little bit scared to go for anybody as captaincy outside of that because of Champions League. Spurs at home against Brentford, if you're one of those few managers that is sat there with a Son or maybe even a Dominic Solanke, you could go there. Man United away against Crystal Palace doesn't fill me with much hope. And then Man City against Arsenal, which in itself, you could go for Erling Haaland. But really, I don't think that is the best play that week. So this fixture here, Liverpool versus Bournemouth, is the money fixture. And if you don't have Mo Salah, really, it's a little bit of a scary prospect thinking that you might go into this week without a captaincy option. So for those that are umming and ahhing about Mo Salah, I do think he's worth the transfer in just for a captaincy pick in game week 5 in itself. Because for my team, I don't really have anybody outside of Trent that I would like to captain in game week 5. So that is a little bit of a worrying thing for my team coming into this week. So I want to leave my team up on the screens for now, just to give you an idea of the 3 options that I'm considering. Then I want to deep dive into some of the questions that you guys have. Then we'll come back to my team. So first up, option 1, I'm going to put this in the poll to get a bit of an idea for you guys, is, and maybe we put the transfers up. So the first option is going to be a simple sideways move of Saliba to Robertson. And a reminder that I currently have 1 million in the bank, 1 free transfer. So the first one is doing Saliba to Robertson. Option 2 is actually selling Saka to Luis Diaz, and my team would look like this. It would give me loads of money in the bank, but the problem would be I would lose that premium spot in the midfield, so I would struggle to go back to anybody in that spot later down the line. The third option, and the one that I think a lot of people are doing this week, but when they have free transfers, is doing Saka to Mo Salah and then downgrading Alexander Isak to João Pedro. But we need to remember here that this is a -4 point hit. So it isn't as simple as just, yes, do that move, because the 4-point hit needs to be taken into consideration. So I need to just quickly pop a poll in. Which moves would you make? So would you go Saliba to Robbo? Would you do Saka to Diaz? Or would you do Saka and Isak to... Sorry, I'm just typing, but I'm super slow at typing. To Pedro. But that will be for a -4. Let me know in the chat, guys, what you would do in this situation. Right now, maybe controversially, I am leaning towards doing the Saliba to Robertson move. The reason being is, as well, we need to remember a -4 in itself is not ideal. And secondly, you're selling someone like Alexander Isak, who is a fantastic forward. Like, we can't kid ourselves here. He is a fantastic option. And really, who would I rather have, Isak or João Pedro long term? The answer is still going to be Alexander Isak in that team. But Again, there are many factors that we need to take into account, like Mo Salah would then give me a captaincy option in game week 5, which is really important. I wouldn't have that available to me. So super tough to decide. Let me know your thoughts in the chat. I'm going to come to some of the questions that you guys have put in, and hopefully we can answer some very, very popular ones. So Raphael says, should I start Mbeumo over Morgan Rogers? This is really tricky. I always play the fixtures. Could Mbeumo score in that fixture? Absolutely. But I still would probably prefer Morgan Rogers in that game. But I get it. Mbeumo on penalties can get a goal in any fixture. So that one's really, really close in that sense. JP, Gordon and Murphy to Eze and Rogers for a -4 worth it, benching Smith Rowe. So Gordon and Murphy... Gordon, absolutely fine in any fixture, and Murphy, not ideal. To Eze and Rogers for a -4. But no, if you have Smith Rowe and he is home against West Ham, I would simply play Smith Rowe and avoid the -4. Matoma is a brilliant pick. For anybody that's asking about Erling Haaland right now, the situation is that he had a close family friend pass away. I believe it was a friend of his dad's. He kind of looked at him as an uncle. He's passed away, but he has trained all week. Man City have granted him compassionate leave if he chooses to take it. We're not really going to know that. But also in the same breath, we need to remember that Man City are playing in today's fixture at 3 p.m. I think we would have heard by now if he was going to be off, going to a funeral, or taking some sort of compassionate leave. So I personally think Erling Haaland will be fine in this game week. But of course, it is really sad news, and it kind of puts FPL into perspective in that sense. Jota or Diaz? I personally would go for Diaz right now if I was to buy currently. But we need to remember that Liverpool do have Champions League coming up. Between Nottingham Forest and Bournemouth, they have a Champions League game. And then between Wolves and Crystal Palace, they have a Champions League game. So it isn't just as simple as thinking that the Liverpool players are untouchable. We are going to see rotation in these Champions League teams. Liverpool, Arsenal, Aston Villa, and of course, Man City. All of these teams are going to get rotation at some point. And I do think with Liverpool having Gakpo, Darwin Núñez, even Chiesa needs to get some minutes. We could see some rotation in that Liverpool front line, absolutely. Salah and Semenyo, or Saka and Diaz. For this week in isolation, I would say Salah and Semenyo 100%, because I think Semenyo is ticking over really nicely with good numbers, and I wouldn't be surprised if they were to score against Chelsea, I'm going to be honest with you. What do I think about Digne? I need to do a bit more research on this, Nico, because of course they have Ian Maatsen available to them. Why is he not getting minutes? I need to check that one out. But I personally think Digne is good, but I think rotation is coming with the Champions League for Aston Villa. Elliot's saying, would I take a -8 to avoid a wildcard? That completely depends on the actual players that you are including. Unfortunately, I don't really know the answers to that because of the context. Thoughts on Solanke if I'm on a wildcard? I personally would like to actually see him get some minutes up to full fitness before considering him as an option. But I do think Spurs are not a bad team to invest in eventually. I know people are going for a Pedro Porro. If we take a look at the fixtures, I would say they're quite mixed. But we need to remember, no Champions League, of course, only Europa League for Spurs. They are able to rotate their team, and this is a great fixture, and I wouldn't rule out goals in these games here. So Solanke, personally, I would like to see him actually get up to fitness before considering him, but he could be a brilliant pick for our teams. Adam, I usually do this until about 10, so about another 50 minutes or so on this stream, mate. Matoma or Eze, really, really tough. I still prefer Eze. I think the fixture this week is as good as Brighton's. Let me try and get up the fixture ticker for you here. Okay, so Brighton, the next couple, Ipswich, and then Forest, fantastic fixtures. But we also need to remember, Forest are not a whipping team. This is a team under Nuno who has put up really good defensive numbers. So I don't think Brighton are just going to destroy Nottingham Forest at all. Brighton will have their challenges under the new manager. In terms of Crystal Palace, Leicester at home and then Man United at home. I mean, do we look at Man United to be fearful of that fixture? I think the answer is no. I think Crystal Palace have great fixtures, and with Eze being the talisman in that team, everything running through him, even though I think Matoma is probably the more exciting pick, I personally still would lean towards Eze. Trent captain, I think he's okay, but I would be a little bit hesitant to go there. I think there are better options out there. Will João Pedro play today? Well, what time are they kicking off? Brighton are kicking off at 3 p.m. Would we get a leak for Brighton? Possibly, but I wouldn't guarantee it. So I unfortunately can't sit here and say to you yes or no whether he starts or not. I think the assumption is that he's fit, available for selection. We know that he is travel back fine, has been deemed fit and available, but is he actually get picked, or is there an opportunity to maybe have some sort of rotation with so many brilliant options available? We don't really know the answer to that, so I'm just checking to see if there is any Twitter news out there. Who does start, Lewis or Dunk? For me, I think you have to start Lewis if you have him. He is picking up so many fantastic positions on the pitch. Yes, you are taking that slight risk of rotation if he does finally look to bring in Kyle Walker for the occasional game, but if you have Rico Lewis with a home game against Brentford, I think you have to choose that one, mate. FPL Vass is saying, which two players from Gabriel Porro, Morgan Gibbs-White and Wood would you start in game week 4? Well, to remind ourselves of the fixtures, Nottingham Forest away against Liverpool, not ideal at all. Gabriel Porro, not ideal playing against one another. So, to be honest with you, I really rate Liverpool right now defensively to the extent where I would almost be tempted to play Gabriel Porro and hope that one of those teams either clean sheets or both get some sort of attacking returns. So personally, I think I would go for Gabriel Porro quite controversially. Tim, yep, wildcarding is definitely a theme right now, and mainly it's just because people are looking to pivot their teams to go to a Mo Salah team, and also we need to remember there have been some really unfortunate situations out there. Barco, Hall, Solanke injuries. There's been a lot of reasons for managers to make multiple moves. Therefore, a wildcard has kind of been needed for their teams by now. And again, guys, if you're enjoying the stream, please do drop a like on the stream. Always massively appreciated. As I mentioned, I currently am leaning towards, and it isn't a popular pick, doing Saliba to Robertson. And I want to show you my team over the next few weeks just to give you an idea of what each one could look like. Just to show you, this is just by far and away the most underappreciated FPL tool in the game. This is Fantasy Football Fix's Google Chrome extension, which is totally free, called FPL Plus. And basically, you just add in the Google Chrome extension and it builds in a planner on the official site. It's unbelievable. So let me just reset my team a minute. So if we go down option 1, where I do Saliba to Robertson, this is how my team would look. So team would look like this, pretty locked in. Captaincy on Haaland, vice captaincy on Eze. Coming into game week 5, the big problem with this team, of course, is that I don't have Mo Salah as a captaincy pick. Now, of course, they're playing midweek against AC Milan. Anything could happen midweek, so we don't actually know what is going to happen there. I don't love the Haaland captaincy against Arsenal. I just think against big physical players, he historically has struggled a little bit. So my team on paper looks okay, but Saka not ideal away against Man City. Obviously, Erling Haaland against Arsenal. The rest of the team looks good, but I am slightly concerned about a lot of teams playing against one another. I've got Robertson up against Newcastle. I've got Muniz up against Newcastle. It's not a pretty sight game week 5 at all. And when we take a look at the actual fixtures that we want to target, Aston Villa at home against Wolves, obviously a great fixture, but could Wolves score in that fixture? 100%. I don't have any Brighton, so when we come on to my second option, I would be covering off these two fixtures quite nicely. And then finally, in terms of the rest of the team, I don't think there are many other fixtures that I wouldn't have in game week 5. So coming into game week 6, the big thing about this is I'd have this team with Bukayo Saka already in place. Isak at home against Man City, not ideal, but if I was able to roll my transfer in game week 5, I would arrive in game week 6 with 2 free transfers and maybe even the opportunity to just simply not wildcard, which would put me in a really, really strong position. So what I could do in this situation is not actually be tempted to go to Mo Salah and maybe actually look to pivot my team and bring in some Arsenal assets. So for example, Alexander Isak out, Kai Havertz in as part of a free transfer would bring me him in at home against Leicester. And again, if I wanted to, I could even maybe change my goalkeeper, do Henderson to a Raya. And my team would then be locked in for game week 6 without a wild card. Now, of course, there are some fixture swings out there that we need to consider from game week 6 onwards. So Brentford, I wouldn't have any Brian Mbeumo, so I would look to maybe bring him into the team if Diogo Jota remained a rotation risk. And again, that could be a priority transfer where I don't do the Raya move, but I bring in, Mbeumo, absolutely a viable pick. But when I look at the rest of it, if I'm able to bring in Arsenal assets for game week 6, outside of that, who is the fixture swing in game week 6 that really I want to be bringing in and justifying why a wildcard is needed? I'd already have Erling Haaland for Man City, so I don't need to do that. Man United, I don't really feel compelled to wildcard players in. So I think if I do go down this route, it would then mean that I don't wildcard in game week 6, which would be super interesting and mean that I'd actually postpone it until a bit later on in the season. Now, that's option 1. I don't love the idea of not having a captaincy pick in game week 5. The second option is getting rid of Bukayo Saka and bringing in Luis Diaz. Now, again, we might get a Liverpool team leak before the deadline, so my team would look like this. So if we get news that Diaz is starting for Liverpool, that would tempt me to potentially do Saka to Diaz. But, of course, I'm selling Bukayo Saka, which is not an ideal situation, and I'm keeping Saliba. So who would I rather have? Robertson and Saka. Robertson and Saka, or Saliba and Diaz. I think I'd rather have Robertson and Saka than Saliba and Diaz. So, in a way, this kind of already is not an option for my team. So, saying that out loud has kind of confirmed that I'm not going to make that move. That move isn't going to happen. Thank you so much, guys. So, the final move is the -4, which would include selling Bukayo Saka for Mo Salah. But of course, 1.7 million is then needed to change up my team. So in order to do this move, I would then have to free up 1.7 million. Well, I'm not selling Trent. Saliba down to a defender just doesn't exist. So it would have to unfortunately be Alexander Isak, and I'm very hesitant to make that move. Now, in terms of the options available, let's be real. If I'm going to do the move, it would have to be João Pedro coming in. Now, even though this team would be for a -4, it looks pretty good. It's the team that a lot of managers do have. It's very template, but it is a very, very good team. Captaincy will be on Haaland. Vice-captaincy will be moved to Mo Salah in the event that Haaland doesn't play. The big thing about this team is that when we come into game week 5, Saliba away against Man City is not ideal at all, but I would have Mo Salah as a captaincy pick for the Bournemouth game, which would mean the best player that game week by far, like considerably best. We'd have the rest of the team basically pick itself, and whereas Alexander Isak originally would be going away against Fulham, I would have João Pedro at home against Nottingham Forest. Now again, I don't actually think that fixture is as good as a lot of people are saying. Forest defensively have been very, very good under Nuno since his reign. So I don't think João Pedro at home in game week 5 is better than Alexander Isak away against Fulham. So I don't think that fixture is as good as people are saying. Then coming into game week 6, again, realistically in game week 5, I don't think there's any team that I would want to buy. So I would be looking to roll my transfer in game week 5 100% if I had this team. Then coming into game week 6, I would already have Saliba at home against Leicester. And a reminder, I would have 2 free transfers available to me in this week. I would have Mo Salah locked in. I would have Erling Haaland. João Pedro comes into a tricky run of games away against Chelsea. Maybe then this is where I need to start to look to pivot my team. The problem with it is that because, of course, I've used a lot of the funds, I can't easily get to other players in the game. So, for example, Jota out to Mbeumo would just almost be an obvious move for the team. Bringing in a goal scorer, having that locked in, Salah, Haaland, and then the front 3. I probably would be tempted to start Smith Rowe over João Pedro. The big issue with this team right now is that because I've gone for a Salah and Haaland draft, you're kind of locked in on that structure for the longer term, I feel. I can't see myself selling Haaland away against Newcastle, even though it is a tricky fixture. But this team on paper doesn't look bad at all. I'd be pretty happy to play this team with still one free transfer available. But of course, only one Arsenal asset is not ideal. So one move that I could do is maybe look to pivot the team and go for Raya in goal. The problem again, if I've got Salah, Haaland, Trent, and then I'm spending 5.5 million on a goalkeeper, I am investing a lot of money into some of the most expensive players in the team. That means going forward, I am then in a tricky spot where I don't have much freedom to change my team each and every week. But I do feel like this team looks great for game week 5 and 6. And again, if I was able to roll my transfer once more, coming into game week 7, I still have some brilliant fixtures for the team. So that's a bit of a rundown of the squad. Let me know your thoughts. I'm still umming and ahhing what to do. I think the -4 makes a lot of sense, but it is a little bit more of a fear move rather than a logical move, I feel. But please do let me know your thoughts in the comments. I have not made my transfer for anybody that is wondering. So let me go through some of the chat, guys. So, thoughts on Garnacho for today's game. Hopefully we'll get some Man United team news. I would only be looking to buy him if that was confirmed. But I do think at some point Garnacho is going to emerge as a brilliant option. But when we take a look at the Man United fixtures here, I just don't really feel like there's any great time to buy them. Like, you're not going to be looking at these fixtures thinking, I have to buy them in game week 4, 5, 6, 7. Maybe game week 8 is the time to jump on Man United. But even then, I think there are going to be other teams that have great fixtures that are going to be tempting us. So I think we need to see a little bit more from Man United in general and Garnacho's guaranteed minutes before we actually go there. But I do like him as a differential. Is it okay to play Salah captain instead of Haaland considering the news about his friend that died? Yes. So personally, I think Haaland will play. The reason being is I think we would have got some news by now if Haaland had travelled back to take compassionate leave. So I feel like he probably is okay. But is Mo Salah basically on par with Haaland this week? I'd probably say yes. The reason why I think Haaland is a better pick is mainly because we know that if Man United, sorry City fans, if Man City were to win by a considerable scoreline, I think we all know that Haaland is going to have a real influence on that. Whereas with Liverpool, even though Mo Salah is a chance creator, if I saw 4-0 Liverpool, would I be shocked if I saw Salah with 1, Jota with 1, Diaz with 1, and Szoboszlai with 1? The answer would be no. So I do think, even though Salah is phenomenal, I still would lean towards Erling Haaland. And I'll be interested to know in the chat, guys. Let me get a poll up right now. Who is your game week 4 captain? Because I think this is a really interesting week for it. So I think really Haaland and Saka just makes a lot of sense. Sorry, Haaland and Salah. But I think there's a few Palmer picks out there. And I think there's going to be a few maybe differential essays. If you've got anybody outside of the ones that I've put on that list, please do put them in the chat and I'll pick it up. Just want to see if I've missed anything here, guys. Salah and Semenyo or Saka Diaz, I've covered that one off. I would go for Salah and Semenyo. Best budget striker already got João Pedro. I think, controversially, it could be Calvert-Lewin. Now, Everton's fixtures are on here? Yes. Everton's fixtures are not too bad. Villa, Leicester, Palace, Newcastle, Ipswich, Fulham. If you're looking for a differential budget forward, I do think Calvert-Lewin probably is the route to go for, but we just know his injury record is something that is a little bit worrying. I think KDB is a brilliant pick, but remember Phil Foden is back in training, Champions League is coming about. Could we maybe see De Bruyne used in the Champions League as opposed to the league? We don't have the answer to that, and I think the uncertainty means that he's great for this week, but a problem longer term. Yes, if I had Saka to Salah and Isak to Pedro for free, then yes, I would make that move. In a heartbeat. I'm going to be honest, in a heartbeat. Dizzy saying best wildcard team. So I covered off a wildcard team previously, but I haven't actually got the slide for it. So one thing I will say is do definitely check out some previous videos that I have done. I, for one, would still go for Erling Haaland and Mo Salah in a wildcard team. I will try and build one a bit later in the stream. I want to try and cover off some of the other chat first and foremost. But if you want to check out some wildcard teams, please do check out my previous videos. Concert or Robinson for their respective fixtures. Robinson is a bit more of an exciting pick, let's be real. But Have we had the best of the fixtures? I'm probably going to say yes. That's not great. That's not great. That's not great. That's not great. Probably would lean more towards Consa now, but we do need to remember that Champions League is afoot, and that could mean rotation. Not for Consa, but for Aston Villa, which might just knock them off their groove in the league. Gazman, hi mate, start one of each. Rodgers or Mbeumo, and a Stupinan Robertson. Well, definitely Robinson, because I have no idea whether a Stupinan actually plays. And Rodgers versus Mbeumo, we had this chat earlier. I think Mbeumo naturally is the one to go for, mainly because he has more avenues to points in terms of just generally being a better FPL pick on penalties, and Man City just always have a way of conceding goals. But on a fixture perspective, it is Morgan Rodgers. I mean, I personally would go for Rodgers, but I think Mbeumo, I would not be surprised if he was to score. Rune, hope you're doing well, mate. I'm on the fence for a while, but did Palmer plus Watkins to Salah plus Vissa? It was a close call, but I wanted Salah and Erling Haaland. Yes. I think Vissa will have his moment, definitely. You may have bought him a little bit early, but I think you've got him in place for game week 6. So you're ahead of the game a little bit. I don't love the idea of selling Watkins. Obviously, now he's confirmed fit. But you have got Salah in place, especially for a captaincy in game week 5. Rodgers or Onana, Danny's saying. So this is a tricky one because I think Onana is the one that's picking up the points, obviously. But I covered him off earlier. I don't think I still have the slide, annoyingly. Let me try and get up a little bit of a comparison for you. Onana versus, let me just get Aston Villa up. Sorry, I haven't put it on the screen yet because I don't want to bore people with it. Okay, so here we got a comparison between Onana and Rodgers. So this is on Fantasy Football Fix, by the way. So take a look at the touch sheet map. To be honest with you, not really anything to report. Both playing very centrally, but we need to remember Onana a bit more of a defensive mid, box to box. Rodgers more of a number 10, second forward, and both have had pretty decent minutes. You can see at the top here, 228 for Onana, 270 for Rodgers, but Onana is the one that's had the points. 20 points for Onana, only 6 for Morgan Rodgers, which is the reason why people are naturally being more tempted to go to Onana, because when you actually flick it on, you can see he's the one with the points. Now, when we come down to the actual numbers here, and let's be real, it's only been 3 games, so we can't come to any conclusions right now, but we can take a look at the numbers here. So 2 goals for Onana, 0.96 expected goals. Now, the big thing about Onana is if you've seen his goals, they have come from set pieces. So the first goal in the opening game, the ball got whipped in, 2 yards out, bullet header, I believe. Second one was a really nice combination set piece from a free kick that they did score. So even though he's had 6 shots, basically both of his goals have accumulated all of his XG. Everything outside of that is like 0.01. So it's not like he's been having tons of shots from great positions. It's basically been 2 goals from positions where he couldn't really miss. Rodgers, on the other hand, not getting incredible numbers. 0.29, similar shots. Shots in the box only 2 compared to Onana. But as I said, Onana's shots are coming from set pieces as opposed to open play. But again, no surprise that Rodgers is the one that's getting more of the creativity. He's always going to be that player in those positions as a second forward or a number 10. Now, what we need to remember is that we're coming into Champions League territory for Aston Villa. So I don't know whether that's going to impact Rodgers, Onana, both, neither. So we are getting a bit of uncharted territory, especially for Aston Villa, whereas Man City, we can sometimes understand what they're going to do. Right now, I still think I'll go for Morgan Rodgers. A little bit controversial because the numbers have been good for Onana, but from an eye test perspective, I still think Rodgers is the one that long-term could deliver FPL points, even though it has currently been Onana. So it's close, but I am going to lean towards Rodgers right now. But let me know your thoughts in the comments, guys. Welbeck or Pedro? For me, it is currently going to be, controversially, it is still going to be Pedro. Now, again, while we've got this up, let's get this up because it's such a great opportunity to show you guys some of the tools that Fantasy Football Fix have. So, again, similar minutes for both. 262 for Pedro, 254 for Welbeck. Points, Welbeck leading the way, but very, very close. 6 points per game for Pedro, 7.7 for Danny Welbeck. So, again, I'm not reading anything to the touch heat maps. There have been so little games that we can't really come to any conclusions. So, take a look at the actual numbers right now. XG is in Danny Welbeck's favour. Shots, very, very similar. 6 for Welbeck, 5 for João Pedro. The big thing is shots in the box. All of those for Danny Welbeck at 6, which is really interesting. He is not really being the one as the connector in a number 10 role. That is being João Pedro. Danny Welbeck's responsibility in this team is to get in between the posts. And that is a really exciting prospect because I think previously we've seen Danny Welbeck be more of a link-up player. But maybe we're seeing a slight change in Welbeck's game and he's actually being the poacher in this team, which is quite an exciting prospect if we are to see that continue. But we don't know whether that is absolutely going to be consistent because it's only been 3 games, remember. So, again, the big thing about it is, why is everybody saying buy João Pedro when the numbers for Welbeck are actually really solid? And I think it's just because there's an air of inevitability with Welbeck. We know his injury history. We know that there is players available to Brighton in the shape of Evan Ferguson and Rutter who are going to take minutes away from both of these players, it's worth noting. And I think we are probably being quite unfair to Danny Welbeck, where we are saying to ourselves, we just know what is inevitably going to happen. But what about if it never happens and Welbeck continues with these numbers and he continues to be great? For me, I just think because of the versatility of João Pedro is the reason why I would lean more towards him. I think he probably gets longer minutes, better minutes over the foreseeable future. And I think Welbeck's going to be one that I ignore. I think a lot of people will ignore. And I wouldn't be surprised if he ticks over with points. But I think João Pedro is still the one I would go for. But this is a reason why you can go for Welbeck and it's still a fantastic pick. Mortal Technique, hope you're well, mate. But you don't have Eze. I do have Eze in my team. I'll just show you right now. This is my team currently. Currently have Eze in it. Again, guys, if you can drop a like on the stream, about 170 in here, only 43 likes. We always aim for 50. If we can hit 50, always massively appreciated. I just want to double check to see if there is any sort of news on Twitter with anything going on, guys, because it's always super important to make sure we're not missing anything on the chat right now. Because imagine if I'm rambling like an idiot and all of a sudden someone's out injured. I didn't know about it. So just checking to see if there's any sort of news out there. But I don't think there is. Rune's asking, Brentford need to be included if people are wildcarding right now. The fixture run for game week 6 is insane. In when we'll visit is essential in my opinion. Yeah, so I think you could pivot your team where you almost have a transfer booked in to bring him in game week 6. So I don't think it's essential to have him in your teams, but I do think that they have to have a plan in place to bring him in eventually. Shadow saying, Smith Rowe versus West Ham, Rodgers versus Everton, or Vardy versus Crystal Palace. Which 2 of the 3 would you choose to start? So for me, it's a tricky one. I currently have Rodgers over Smith Rowe, so that kind of answers that question. I definitely would have Rodgers as number 1. Vardy on penalties is really important, but I just don't really rate Leicester in general. So I probably am controversially going to say Smith Rowe and Rodgers over Vardy. But again, with Vardy on penalties, I think that's a factor that you need to consider as well. CJ saying, I have a defensive Barco, Murillo, Voutface, Kanate and Ruben Diaz. I got to sell Murillo. Who do I get instead of him for 4.5 million? If you can afford Konsa, Konsa would probably be one of my number 1 picks for your team. Just seeing what is being duplicated here, guys. Again, thanks for getting us 50 likes. Really appreciate that, guys. What would you do with Palmer? My only way to get Salah in would be to remove Saka and Palmer from -4. No. If you're doing it from -4, I just don't think it's worth it. Especially someone of Palmer's quality and caliber who can deliver at any game. I think that'll be a mistake. Alan, should I put Palmer or Son in my wildcard team? And change to Saka in game week 6. My wildcard midfield is in Mbeumo, Salah, Palmer, Eze and Rodgers. I have no Haaland. Alan, so if you are already penciling in game week 6 for your team, when we take a look at the fixtures, oh, I haven't got them up, hang on. If you are penciling in Saka, realistically, you could also, you're not going to say anyone else. They're just checking to see what is the best over the next 2 weeks. So, Chelsea up against Bournemouth and West Ham away, not ideal. Spurs, on the other hand, are up against Arsenal and Brentford. Now, I think the Brentford fixture in itself probably is leaning more towards Son as the pick. And I think it might be easier to part ways with Son than Palmer when you do get to game week 6. But we just know Palmer's an unbelievable pick. Of the two, I think I probably would go for Palmer. Just Palmer. K. Denny saying Raya to Verbruggen or Raya to Alisson plus Van de Ven to Dunk. Option 1 allows me 4 transfers game week 6. Yeah, Raya to Verbruggen is a good move. Yes. Obviously, Raya in game week 6, you're going to want him back. But I think Raya to Verbruggen would be my preference that you have mentioned there. Salah captaincy this week, yes. And I can see 76% have gone for Erling Haaland as their captain. Minter or Harvey Barnes? Minter for me, 100%. Damien, I think Salah and Pedro is a good choice with the rest of the team looking good, worth the risk. Yeah, thank you, Damien. Yeah, I think Salah, Pedro would 100% come in if it was a free transfer move. It's just because it's a minus 4-point hit. I'm a little bit worried. Rune saying never put DCL forward as a punt ever again. The man is useless. Yeah, he is a frustrating player, that is for sure. Let me just get my team back up. Again, this is a reminder of what my team is currently looking like with 1 transfer, 1 million in the bank. I'm just checking to see if there's any sort of news right now. Can't see anything. But again, in terms of transfers, guys, everybody is on. If you want to take a look at the most popular transfers right now, this is a brilliant tool in Fantasy Football Fix. So here we have the most transfers in and out. So João Pedro here is the most bought. It is ridiculous the amount of transfers in. But you can see here, where are people coming from? So 54% of the buys for Pedro are coming from Alexander Isak, which again, I don't love selling Isak because away against Fulham is not terrible at all. And then the Muniz to Pedro, 17%, and then Wood to Pedro, 6%. When we take a look at, obviously, Isak, that's understandable, but Luis Diaz, where are people coming from? Gordon to Diaz is 21% of the moves. Jota to Diaz, I would not be doing that move. Jota to Diaz, very sideways. Saka to Luis Diaz, 10% of the moves there. And Haaland, a lot of people arriving to Haaland from Isak and Watkins, and even Kai Havertz, which is interesting. So these are all the popular transfers in and out, and an idea of where people are coming from to get there. So again, Isak to Pedro, the most done move by everybody. Like, everybody is selling Isak for João Pedro. The next best, Isak to Welbeck, and then weirdly Isak to Havertz this week, which doesn't make a lot of sense to me. Bowen, I don't mind Bowen, Luciano, but I don't love it either. I've gone for Nketiah over Pedro because I think he may start. Abdul, I think Nketiah is a bit of a brave one. Hitmonlee. Love your stuff. Got 1 free transfer, 1.5 like thoughts on Madueke to Eze. Madueke has, I can't believe he didn't deliver in the previous week. He had so many brilliant chances. Do I prefer Eze? Yes. I think the big thing for you, mate, is take a look at your team. If you roll the transfer, how does your team look the following week with 2 free transfers available? And then understand whether that is going to improve your team or not. If it doesn't, then yes, I like the move. But I think Madueke is still a good pick for your team. Welbeck or Pedro, I have covered that one off, so I would rewind it just a little bit to check out that section where I kind of deep dived into it. Rune saying, what a great start to the day. Need to go to Palace or a beer now to get my head in place, ready for the Man United on early kickoff. Enjoy your day, my friend. Thank you again, mate. Milo, bro. Saka for Salah, then -4. Pedro for... See, Milo, this is the decision that I've got right now. I don't love the move. I'm going to be honest with you. I think it's a great move. It gives you a captaincy for Mo Salah in game week 5. But I just don't love the idea of selling. I don't know what it is. I just don't. We need to remember the people we're selling. Okay, so I think a lot of people are just selling Saka and Isak and not really thinking about them as players. So, like, Saka away against Spurs, like, can he deliver in this fixture? 100%. When we take a look at him here, 1.15 expected goal involvement against Brighton, 0.72 against Wolves, pretty poor against Aston Villa there. And then in terms of previous seasons, like 226 points, 202 points. This guy is a beast. And then when it comes to Alexander Isak, again, a player who has had an indifferent start to the season, but we need to remind ourselves here, 21 goals last season. Like, these are top players. Now, we're getting rid of Alexander Isak, who has no involvement in Champions League, we need to remember. So we are coming into a spot right now where we're basically going to be selling Bukayo Saka, who, even though he has Champions League, is just absolutely guaranteed game time regardless, for Mo Salah, who should have guaranteed game time, but let's be real, slightly older, could see some rotation maybe if the game is comfortable with an eye on the Champions League. And then, of course, you're selling Isak, who has no Champions League, for someone like João Pedro, who is a brilliant pick, but we need to also remember, for Brighton, have many options available to them. So while I think it's a brilliant move, I absolutely would do it for a free transfer. I think more thought needs to be done in terms of a -4. Bowen or Luis Diaz, I still would go for Luis Diaz right now. Saka or Palmer on a wild card, I probably would go for Palmer right now. Will Trippier start this week? I don't know on that one. I do apologise, but animations, hope you're doing well, mate. Would you start Porro or Hall? I would start Pedro Porro 100%, Jake. Edward, Mitoma or Mbeumo? I would go for Mitoma right now, but I would have an eye on or a plan of how to get Mbeumo in game week 6. If you don't have one and you don't want to allocate a transfer at that spot, then I would literally just bring in Mbeumo for the long term. But the fixtures up next for Mitoma are just sensational, really. Best option in goal, I think, in terms of the fixtures coming up, let me put these on screen for you. So I think Verbruggen would actually be my number one cheap alternative for Brighton. I think the fixtures are great. Few indifferent ones between 6 and 8, but could he accumulate save points? Absolutely. If you're looking for an expensive option, I actually would just go for Raya, because even though it's not great for the next few, beyond that, I think he's great. And you almost just want to look at a 10-week window as opposed to nothing. Bloody hell. Sorry, guys, we're done. Christ. Aaron, not enough likes. Sometimes I forget to drop one, as I assume you should have hundreds. Come on, people. Thank you, Aaron. I appreciate that. Yeah, to be honest with you, I don't mind it at all. It's one of the sort of things, actually, where I do the exact same thing. I listen to people and I'm like, holy crap, I haven't dropped a like. And let's be real, it doesn't matter, but it's always nice if you guys drop a like. Just, what is it? Just to show that it's a good stream. I kind of look at the likes and think, if it's good, the stream's good, I think the likes are good, but I also appreciate that. There's loads of times I've watched a video and been like, oh, I forgot to drop a like, forgot to say hi. Totally understandable, and honestly, I do not mind at all. It is, it's just nice that you think it deserves a like, so I appreciate that, mate. Dana's saying, Gabriel Trent or Dunk? Dunk means I get Salah cap next week, and Trent means I get Son cap next week for Saka. Yeah, that's an interesting one. Saka, Gabriel Trent or Dunk? If it means you can get Salah capacity the following week, then I probably would lean towards Dunk. But it all depends on when your wild card is as well, my friend. Wood or Welbeck? I probably would lean towards Welbeck, to be honest with you. Gabriel for Robbo or Smith Rowe for Semenyo? I would go for, this week, Gabriel to Robbo. Only, you have to remember, you need to understand your plan. If that then triples you up on Liverpool, but you want another Liverpool. So, for example, my team here, I've got Jota and Trent. If I was to do Saliba to Robertson, which I'm considering, I'm then accepting that I'm almost going without Mo Salah unless I do Jota to Mo Salah. So just remember, if that is your triple up on Liverpool, is that the triple up that you want? Bowen, again, as mentioned, I don't mind it, but I think there are better options out there right now for teams. And Jan's saying, hi mate, I'm trying to get in Haaland. I want to sell Watkins, Odegaard and Palmer for Haaland, Mbeumo and Fatu. Thoughts, 3 free transfers. I'm going to be honest with you. I don't love the idea of selling Watkins and Palmer this week. I like the sell of Odegaard because we know he could be out. So you are obviously getting rid of an injured player. but it's a lot to do with your 3 free transfers. Now, it will bring in Buemo for the long term, which is great. But this week, I just don't love the move. I'm going to be honest with you, mate. I think Watkins and Palmer are 2 players this week that could definitely deliver. Is it crazy starting Gabriel and Porro? No, I've seen a lot of teams with this. The problem is if you've got Gabriel, Porro, and then you've got like Hall and Barco, I actually don't mind it. Let's be real. I think there could be goals in the North London derby, but can both get attacking returns? I think the answer is yes. So I don't mind it if you need to play that combination. Henderson or Martinez in goal this week. Probably going to say Henderson. Just Henderson. But let's be real. If you're spending that much for Martinez, you probably want to start him in a week like this. One thing about Jackson, I think Jackson's a great pick for your teams. I think if anybody's not going to get rotated in this Chelsea team, it will be Nicholas Jackson. And with the fixtures coming up for Chelsea, I don't think it's a bad move, you know. Bournemouth, West Ham, Brighton, Forest. I actually don't mind it. And remember, with the Conference League for Chelsea, they actually probably will play a B team and still do quite well. So whereas Champions League, we know that Watkins is going to play midweek and weekends. Jackson might just play the Premier League and miss out on Conference League. And that suddenly makes him a really good pick. Rune, thank you, mate. Appreciate it, my friend. Power is safer. Yes, I think Power is actually a good shout. Ryan, love the channel, mate. Would you bring in Eze? Thank you, by the way. Would you bring in Eze for Saka for a 2-week punt, bring him back in game week 6? Ooh. Sorry, guys, give me 2 seconds. I'm back. Sorry, guys, we had a delivery, so I had to just quickly see what was going on, but all good. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. I'm just trying to get back to where I was. We are... Sorry, guys. I'm just trying to sort out this a minute. Who's the best option? Right. Let's have a look at this. Sorry, guys. Just resetting everything. Can you hear me okay? Can you just drop like a yes or no on this? Give me 2 seconds. Hello, hello, hello. Can you hear me? I don't know if I've messed up my thing now. Have I messed up my stream? Can you guys hear me okay? Perfect. We're back. That must have been like a weird 2 seconds where I was just like saying, can you hear me? Apologies. Okay, so we're back. Will Luis Diaz or Lewis start? Alex, on that one, mate, I don't really know the answer to it. I do apologise, mate. I think if I had to say, yeah, I think both would play. Kato saying, pre-recorded or this guy streaming on Twitch? No, this is all live or normal. I'm obviously reading comments that are a little bit further up, so they're not as recent, Kato, on that one. Did you put a question in? I do apologise. Oh, replacing Saka for Salah and benching Haaland. Replacing Saka for Haaland. Help. Kato, no. Do not be benching Haaland at all. Please do not bench Haaland. Does Garnacho start, Reece? If I had to say, I think I would say yes, but I'm not 100% sure on that one, my friend. Should I take a hit for Nedeljkovic and Mateta to Pedro and Robertson? I have Haaland, Son, Isak and Salah. Well, on the face of it, yes, I do like that move. So if you can do it for free transfers, then yes. But you are taking a hit for those moves. I mean, do you need both of those? Because I would just maybe look to do one of those moves potentially in your teams. And if you're going to do one of those moves this week, I don't love the idea of you selling Mateta at home against Leicester at all. Start 2 of Smith Rowe, Mbeumo, and Muniz. I probably would go for Smith Rowe and Muniz this week, but I get it with Mbeumo being on penalties. Probably one of those that you do want to start. Bruno to Minter or Isak to Welbeck Pedro. I cannot be recommending you selling Bruno with this fixture against Southampton. So I would keep Bruno this week 100%. But if you're just doing a free transfer of Isak to Welbeck Pedro, unless it's making you free up funds to go somewhere else, I would keep Isak 100%. Salah or not, mate, I've got enough money for Saka. Yes, if you could do Saka to Salah for a free transfer, yes, I would make the move. The main reason being is it gives you a captaincy in game week 5. Again, for those that are jumping in right now, I haven't made my move, which is a bit of a problem. So the two things that I'm considering right now is going to be, and I've mentioned it in the stream, so if you want a bit more detail on what I'm planning, make sure you do rewind it. But the two options, I've narrowed it down to two, basically. I had originally the idea of doing Saka to Luis Diaz, but I just don't think it's worth it for my team. I would much rather just take the -4 and get Mo Salah, who I actually want to have. So option number 1 is going to include me doing Saka to Mo Salah and Isak to João Pedro. Basically what everybody's doing for a -4. It's very template, but I think we just have to understand that it is a good move. Like, it is a good move. It brings you in a Brighton asset for the next 2, which are good fixtures. It brings in Mo Salah, importantly, for your captaincy option in game week 5. But for my case, it would be for a -4, which is not an ideal situation. And part of me does think I like the idea of having Isak when everybody's selling him as an option for the team, because his ownership right now is, well, I mean, that's still big, but it's still a great game, I think, away against Wolves, for example. So this is the first option for a -4. The second option is actually keeping both of those players and doing Saliba out for Robertson. The problem with this move, it then basically commits me to no Mo Salah for the next couple of weeks, which is a bit of a scary prospect. But again, I need to remind myself, I came to this conclusion in pre-season that I was happy to run without Mo Salah for a few weeks. Has he done amazing? Yes. But is Saka still great players? Yes. My problem is owning Saka for the next 2 weeks doesn't really feel quote-unquote optimal. The only reason it's good is because it keeps him in place for me in game week 6. But things can happen between now and game week 6. So if he can't then come into my team, it's kind of a waste of a time, to be honest with you. So again, let me know your thoughts in the comments, what route you would go down. Mine's a little bit more difficult because, of course, I have a -4 that I need to play with. And we need to understand that a -4 is a considerable thing. It's not, I think people kind of look at -4s and think, yeah, it's only a -4, it doesn't really matter. Like, -4s do matter in the game. The big reason why I think the -4 is important for my team is that it will give me the captaincy option in game week 5 to go for Mo Salah, whereas if I don't have Mo Salah, I don't really know who I would go for. And then I need to say to myself, is the -4 justified? That's the big decision. So I like this move that you can see on your screens. It means I keep Bukayo Saka and I kind of keep the confidence in him in general. And game week 5 looks good, but Saka away, Haaland at home, not great. But what I do like is that in game week 6, it allows me to pivot away from someone like an Alexander Isak to a Kai Havertz if I want to, and bring him into the team. So we need to remember there are pros and cons with both of these teams. So I haven't really locked it in, and I appreciate it's not a good position to be in, but I feel like it's a very tough one. But I think like I said, Mo Salah is ticking over really nicely. The thing for me is that I really do hate taking the -4, and I don't think João Pedro is as essential as other people are thinking, which is a slight concern. And I feel like the team is getting a little bit templatey, which I never like doing, to be honest with you. And I do think Isak can deliver over this period, so it's kind of a tricky one to understand right now what to go for. Again, let me know your thoughts. I do think I think the logical move is Robertson. I do think the logical move is Robertson. Muniz to Pedro is an upgrade. I think it is, but I just think it's not really. It's kind of like a mare transfer. Like, do I think Muniz can deliver in this fixture? I do. Whereas I don't think that's justifiable of a transfer. I don't look at this team and think the move that I need to make. I'd rather roll my transfer, to be honest with you. If the move was Muniz to Pedro, I'd rather just roll the transfer. I think looking at the team, like outside of the ones that I'm talking about, would I want to do Saka to Diaz? No. I'm just thinking if there's any final moves that I could make for my team. I mean, Saka to... It would have to be Saka to Salah. But where else could I save the 1.7 million? Like, Saliba down makes no sense. Eze I can't sell this week. Shota I can't sell. So as you can see, it kind of has to be Muniz down to a budget enabler. Is anyone 4.3? No, no one's 4.3. So it has to be Isak in order to get to Salah, which is not a position that I love to be in. Play Muniz or João Pedro. I think if you have João Pedro, you go there. And again, I think it's very easy to think that you're selling people who are rubbish, but Saka and Isak are just top bracket players. Like, we're not selling rubbish here. Do you know what I mean? We're selling big players. And I mean, the reason why I'm a little bit hesitant right now on doing the move is, one, can we maybe get some Liverpool news that kind of suggests what direction teams are going in? And two, is it an opportunity for me to be a little bit different and not be swayed by Mo Salah and João Pedro this week? And is there a world where Brighton struggle against Ipswich and then Isak delivers? There definitely is that world. I don't know. I'm still umming and ahhing. The one that I'm not going to sweat about is the -4. Let's be real. Bringing in Mo Salah just means I can sleep well at night. I sleep well at night, and I'm happy. I'm happy with my day. I could go to football today and not worry about the Liverpool score because I know that they're obviously gonna play, and I can come on my phone and not panic about Mo Salah scoring a hat trick against Forest. Do I worry about not having Isak in this game? Not really. Like, I think he's fantastic, but I think we're going to have to wrap up the stream. I'm going to have to post my team in the community section, guys, because I don't think I'm going to come to a conclusion right now. But I need to come to a conclusion, basically. But the reason why I'm being hesitant is because we might get some Liverpool team news, and all it takes is somebody to release something like Jota benched, and there is going to be a lot of problems with my team. So, let me just play around with this one more time. I do apologise. Let me answer some questions. Should I bench Haaland? Absolutely not. Should I buy Palmer, Adam? Depends who you're selling. Robertson, Matoma and Havertz. Robertson, Matoma and Havertz, or Kanate, Saka and Welbeck? The first one, definitely. Definitely the first one. Andrew said need to take the -4 and relax. Yeah, the -4 is an obvious one, but the reason why I'm a little bit hesitant about it is because it makes my team a little bit structured in the following weeks. So, for example, this would be my team. Sorry. This will be my team for game week 4, which looks great, but it is for a -4, which is not ideal. Game week 5, the big thing is that it would give me my captaincy, which is a big factor, and it would give me João Pedro at home, which is great. I obviously, in the other option, would not have Saka, but I'm not really worried about Saka for that week. He could do well against Man City, but also it is a tricky fixture nonetheless. I would still have Saliba, which is not ideal, but can they keep a clean sheet in any fixture? Yes, they can. And will Arteta maybe revert to a bit more of a defensive structure with the absences? Maybe, maybe not. And in game week 5, again, with this team, who am I missing? I'm not fussed about Ollie Watkins because that'll be after a Champions League game. I already have João Pedro for that fixture, so I'm covered off. Don't really care about Leicester. I've got my Liverpool triple up. So I think realistically, I would roll my transfer this week. And then we come into game week 6 with 2 free transfers available. We'd already have Saliba in place, which is great. But of course, we need to look to... Adam saying, will Palmer start? Yes, I think he will. He's been in training. I see no world where he doesn't train. I think he absolutely will train. I'll be astonished if he doesn't. And then with this team here, again, game week 6, it kind of picks itself. I just need to start changing the team to move towards more of a Arsenal-based structure. So I could... One way to do that is to wildcard. One way I could do it is to... If Jota becomes a bit of a problem in the team, take Jota out for a... Again, we need to remember that going for the Salah-Haaland structure means that we're in a position where very hard to put in a Bukayo Saka as well, which is a slight concern. Okay, we're going to wrap this up. I do apologise, guys, because as you can see, I need to sort my team out. I will 100% post my team in the community section, but I do need to wrap this up to jump on a TikTok stream, and I'm going to try and wait until we get some Liverpool news. So for that reason, we're going to wrap it up here. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really hope it provides some value. I do apologise I can't confirm my team because I have to wrap it up now. Drop a like if you enjoyed it. Smash that subscribe button. I will see you in the next video. But again, I will post my team in the community section, so make sure you're subscribed, and I will 100% do it this time round. I apologise for those I didn't do it last time. Thank you again for tuning in, guys. Have a great day. I'll see you in the next one. Take care.